A seamless city is a place that when you're driving through the city, you never cross a seam. Whether that seam is a railroad track or an interstate or a neighborhood boundary. And all of a sudden enter a place that you don't want to be, where you feel like you need to reach over and lock your door, where you pray that you don't get a flat tire because you do not want to have to get out of your car. A place with graffiti on the walls, boarded up buildings, broken windows, drug dealers on the street corner. A place where children are afraid to play in their own front yard. Where those same children are growing up in an environment that you and I would not want to raise our children in. And if we don't want to raise our children in that environment, then nobody should have to. We should not have seams in America's cities. Now, that's a hard thing to do. But the price we pay when we don't do it are the price that we've seen in places like Ferguson and Baltimore and Charlotte of very recent past, and that we see on the streets of Chicago every day. We have to be building seamless cities. I was mayor of St. Petersburg, Florida's fourth largest city. I was elected in 2001. But I'm not a liberal. I'm actually a conservative Republican. And I governed as one. I reduced tax rates by 20%. I more than tripled our emergency reserves. I put performance measures in place for all of our service levels. I cut 10% of the city staff while I increased the number of police officers that we have in the city. I created a street crimes unit specifically to go after the drug trade in our community. And in fact, we increased the number of drug arrests by 50%. Now, surprisingly, I was reelected. But what's surprising about it is St. Petersburg is a Democrat city, vast majority Democrat registered city. And after governing as a conservative for 4 years, I was reelected by 71% of the vote. And in our Midtown precincts, Midtown is a part of our community that is an economically depressed part of town. It's predominantly African American Democrat registered voters. And in fact, in the Midtown precincts, when I ran the first time in 2001, those precincts were won by the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. Yet after governing as a conservative for 4 years and running for re-election, 90% of the African American Democratic voters in Midtown voted to re-elect me. And I was running against the chairman of the Democratic Party. Now, that's never happened before. That's never happened before in America. And why did that happen? Why did the people of our community decide that they were going to look past the party labels and the partisanship that has so ground America to a halt right now? And I think it's because they were looking at results. They saw the success of our efforts to build a seamless city. So how do you do that? How do you build a seamless city? And I actually wrote a book about it called The Seamless City. And it's a complicated thing to do. It's not a silver bullet. It requires a strategic plan. It requires an effort. It requires rolling up your sleeves and doing it every single day. But I think you can kind of boil it down to two overriding governing ideas that you have to go after. The first is that you have to change the environment and you have to change the appearance of the part of the community that you're trying to lift up. Because if you have a community that looks like the one I just described with graffiti and broken windows, then it's really hard for people to feel proud about that community. And it actually attracts crime and bad elements into that part of the community. But if you get that out of your community, and if you replace it with good things, then all of a sudden people take pride and they have something to fight for. So what we did is, my good friend of mine was the first black police chief in the city's history. He became my deputy mayor. His name is Goliath Davis. And Go Davis and I went block by block by block by block. And we first cleaned up the trash. We actually had people using parts of this community as dumping grounds for their trash. So we put a police officer in the sanitation department. They actually went through the trash. They found out who did it. We went and seized their trucks. We then went and we fixed up the streets. We fixed up the lights, broken sidewalks, broken lights. We fixed up the street lights. And then we went and we identified the elements, the amenities that they didn't have in that part of the community that everybody else has. You have a grocery store in your community. You have banks in your community. There were none in Midtown. So we brought a grocery store in. Now that's an easy thing to say. It's a very hard thing to do, but we did it. We brought a bank into the community. We brought a clinic into the community. We brought shopping into the community. The amenities that you and I enjoy in our communities, because if they don't have those, it's very hard to say it's a seamless part of the city if they can't go to a grocery store or a bank in their community. If they got to get on a bus to go to a grocery store. It's not a seamless part of the city. So we changed the environment and we changed the appearance of that part of the community. The second thing that you have to do is you have to change the opportunities for the people that are within that part of the community. Because if there are people in that community, especially youth, that are growing up and they feel they don't have any chance for the American dream. They may see it on TV, but they don't really believe they're going to be able to do it. Then it's like having dry kindling in a community that's just waiting for a spark to go off, right? And that's what we've seen in America. We've seen the results of having that dry kindling. The way you treat that is you provide people with the hope and the opportunity for the future. I believe it's all about, by the way, education, job training, and jobs out there for people to get. Ronald Reagan used to say the best social program you can have is a job. And I believe that sincerely. So we brought a St. Petersburg College program into the heart of Midtown. And they provided job training, but they also provided education for people that wanted to get a degree. We brought a job corps site. Again, these sort of things are easy to rattle off. They're hard to do one at a time. You have to work at it. We brought a job corps site so people get training for jobs that are already in existence so they can go get a job once they get the training. We redeveloped an industrial park that was part of this community that had really gotten run down, but we redeveloped it and we brought jobs into it so then they could get the jobs, right? And then we worked with public education. We had a very aggressive program to support and enhance the public education in St. Petersburg across the board. And I can't talk about all of them today, but I'll mention one. It was called the Mayor's Doorways Program. And the Doorways Program, it's opening up children to an opportunity. So we tell a sixth grader, in sixth grade, if you do certain things, and by the way, these are sixth graders in free and reduced lunch programs, which do not have a great graduation rate in Florida. So if you tell the child, if between 6th and 12th grade, you will do certain things, you will maintain at least a C average, your attendance is good, your conduct is good, you are drug-free and crime-free between 6th and 12th grade, then we will give you a four-year college scholarship. And by the way, I went to the community and the businesses and we raised private money to fund those four-year college scholarships, okay? We were able to raise enough to give away 1,000 college scholarships while I was mayor, 1,000, and 93% of the kids that were in the Doorways program graduated from high school and went on to college. That is changing the opportunity. That is providing the hope. That is making people feel they can have a chance, right? So you change the appearance and the environment, you change the opportunity. But before you can even start to do that, you have to do something else. You have to decide. You have to decide you're going to create a seamless city, right? There's an immense power in deciding to do something, immense. You know, people come up to you and they say, I'm going to try to do that, or I'm going to do my best. They're not going to do it, right? You want them to decide they're going to do it. Then it's just a matter of identifying the resources and the effort it's going to take to do it. So when you decide to create a seamless city, then you don't have a way of turning back and not doing it. I have a story as an example of that, post office story I like to use. When we went out to the community in Midtown, we said, when do you think we will have done what we need to do in Midtown? They gave us all sorts of things. all, I think, appropriate things. And we did them one by one by one by one. We used them as a checklist, right? One thing they said was the post office. You know, we had about, I don't even know, 8 or 9 post offices in St. Pete. And all of them open up for retail business. They sell stamps, they do packages, except for one. The one in Midtown. It took me a year. The mayor of the 4th largest city in the state took a year to get an appointment to meet with the head of the post office for Florida. So I decided I was going to give up on that path. And I went to Governor Bush. Jeb Bush was governor at the time, good friend of mine. And I went to Governor Bush. I brought him pictures of this post office with barbed wire around it, right? And how they had a little window that you could slide open the window. People could come up to it, but they couldn't come in. That was really bad, right? So he looked at it. He's kind of shaking his head. He goes, Rick, he said, this is going to be easy. And I'm thinking, I've been trying this for 3 years, right? But then again, you know, his brother is president of the United States. It might be easier for him than me. So I wind up in the White House offices, meeting with the intergovernmental director of the President of the United States to get retail at post office, right? So I get back from Washington, D.C., right? And I get a call from the post office. You know, we've been rethinking this idea. And I said, well, good. So let's sit down. He said, but we want you to pay for it. I said, okay, I'll pay for it. I didn't know I was going to pay for it, but okay, I'll pay for it. And because it's $250,000. So I went to Community Development Block Grant, went to HUD, got them to fund it for a post office in an inner city, and they paid for it. So the federal government paid for it anyways. So we opened up a post office, okay? We had hundreds of people at a post office opening, right? How many of y'all have been to a post office opening before? I didn't think so. So why did hundreds of people go to a post office opening? The reason is because they understood it meant that the United States of America was saying that Midtown is important. And they also understood that if you are willing to go to the White House to get stamps sold at a post office in Midtown St. Petersburg, then you have decided. You have decided that you are going to change the environment of that part of your community. You have decided that you're going to change the opportunities for the people in that part of your community. And you have decided that you are irrevocably committed to building a seamless city. My hope is that every city in America will make the same decision.